It's 10 o'clock exactly on July 12th. And I'm here to discuss the dispensation, the Lotus dispensation. Um, and there's been a lot of new activity through Lotus. And also to talk about some of the potential pitfalls and dangers that we're encountering during this time. Um, Let me also say, before I start taking questions, that um, there, we always run the risk of developing a misunderstanding. And part of the problem, since we inherited this mess from having lost Atlantis, we, the Earth is supposed to be an Eden that's in full swing. And we have to break out of a lot of negative karma that's not all our fault, incidentally. And I've said this in other recordings, and Mother will speak of the problem with that as well. Rather, she will define specifically that the fallen angels are responsible for so much of the karma. And I'd like to reinforce that as well. I think a lot of times, when one of the messages that I'm getting, periodically the masters will say, for those of you who are new and there are, or who are just beginning to learn a little bit more about the Summit Lighthouse and Order of St. Joseph, my spiritual order, um, there are some potential, there's always a potential for misunderstanding because the dispensation came down from, we believe it came down from, there was a certain sort of line of succession. So people who have a general understanding that New Age theology is correct but don't really understand what to believe are often misled by a lot of false teachers. But that's just like with the major religions, with the Christian churches and so forth. There's a lot of false preaching out there. In other words, religion that is being portrayed, or religious messages that are being delivered by people who aren't qualified to do so, and who don't have the best interest of their followers, or rather the people in their parish, and their religious groups in mind. It's very important that we don't fall into that trap. Problem is, after we lost Atlantis, we did fall into that trap, and now we don't have all the benefits that we did, and our technology is totally run away from us. If we had our technology in place, and if we still had the proper connection to God, if the Antakarana was still intact to the extent that it should be, we would be having less of a difficult time. So it's frustrating to be a spiritual person and to be dedicated to a spiritual path, and to get on the internet and to read a lot of information. Some of which is by people who intend well, and some of which is by people who don't, who are trying to exploit a situation. Part of the problem is false information, and variances that are improper. And also, I believe that tradition is, we want to continue the legacy that was started by Mark and Elizabeth Clare Prophet. We want to have the quote-unquote true dispensation as it came down through the early Theosophists. And as we want to embody it and continue to perfect it here on the planet. There's one particular dictation from a master in which the master, and it could have been Morya or Cthulhu, I don't quite remember, but that master averred that it's proper for the adherents to Guru Ma, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, and the Summit Lighthouse, her organization, to attempt to perfect the church and to bring the church into being. My observation as someone who is a brother and who understands some of the cynicism that can be associated with New Age theology is that we have, to an extent, we have our work cut out for us because of the inordinate amount of misinformation out there. But I think that if people were to look towards the Summit Lighthouse and were to look towards CUT, and of course everybody's free to make their own choice, but if you're looking for the authentic definitions, then truly, Mother Elizabeth Clare Prophet is as close to I guess, pinnacle of New Age information that we have. And this is not just someone who is looking back into the theosophical part of the dispensation. This is also someone who is incredibly well versed in Scripture, who traveled very far and wide to seek out different religious leaders who had met the Pope, who had uh, included the teachings, the distillations of the 8 major world religions in her teachings and in her sessions and so forth. And this is someone who thought about the dispensation and who received information from the masters and was conversant with Jesus and knew Jesus as by way of her embodiment as Martha. And is attempting to regain the foothold in Camelot and to re-embody the ascended masters. Essentially, I believe that is part of the effort. As we go along, what we'll be discussing is a lot of that legacy, and also how my participation as a brother in the order can contribute to that, and can help clarify the material that's already there. And certainly there is a large amount of material there already. In addition to that, we can start to think about newer interpretations, and also what to do with a lot of the new information that's being received. And I had mentioned, and I want to mention a couple of things as well as we move forward. This is sort of general housekeeping, I suppose, and it shouldn't be a drag because it's super important. And I think the information sort of comes through the discussion. I really do, and I think that we're experiencing the uncovering of the additional information as we go along. I mean, that's very important. But the information that I'm receiving, a couple of things. Some of the masters want to make. I've been led to make these video recordings so that it provides documentation of the information as I receive it. Down the line, of course, I want to write the book on the new Aquarian dispensation. We're in the age of Saint Germain, the hierarch of the Aquarian age, which embodies a lot of the principles defined by Aquarian energy. But we have to find a way to manage all of this complex information. And it is incredibly complex. And I invite everybody, including a lot of my friends that I haven't probably heard from in a very long time, as I've been living this monastic life, but would like to become reacquainted and want, very much to play a leading role to whatever extent I am able in the spiritual development of the United States, which is a huge part of the Aquarian dispensation. Germain was also Samuel in the Bible. One of his embodiments was young Samuel in the Bible, and Samuel we know as Uncle Sam. And Mother Guru Ma, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, Mark Prophet, the entire Montana scene, Summit Lighthouse, and Church Universal and Triumphant all take the Founding Fathers very seriously, have an active interest in the dispensation and teachings as they are required to maintain what Mother has described as a God government. And people shouldn't get the impression that this is going to be a government that is led by zealots, but the belief is that the true leader of the United States ought to have the threefold flame should be active in the heart of the leader of the United States, and it shouldn't be run by corporations, and it shouldn't be run by extremists, communists, or extreme capitalists on either side. Mother gave a number of dictations early in the 70s, more, and in the early 80s against communism and the dangers of far left ideology. Over the years, subsequent to those messages in which she specifically terms communism as a danger, and I have myself participated in the decree sessions that sought to stave off the effects of communism. a lot of Catholics will remember, and I think it was probably before Vatican II. I'm not sure when the Rosary changed, but there used to be a prayer to convert. I think it was Russian children, and we don't talk about that as much. Well, the Catholics don't talk about that as much anymore, but it used to be a huge concern. My point is that also another part of our concern is the misuse of capitalism. So the misuse of politics is of urgent relevance to Church Universal and Triumphant and Summit Lighthouse. And Mother's teachings and the belief and the revelation to Mother has been that it doesn't really matter what kind of government you have, as long as the leader is directed by God, has the flame of God on the altar of the heart. And you can hear more about that on Inner Perspectives. I think it's Inner Perspectives, and I'm 99% sure that it's Inner Perspectives, which is the series of recordings that Mother made in I believe it was the 80s, possibly in the early 90s. That's government does play into it. When we believe in the Goddess of Liberty, we believe the Goddess of Liberty is represented by the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty is a statue of the Goddess of Liberty. So we look for fairer solutions in government. We look for the mind of Germain and the direction of Germain, and also people like Lotus, Edna Ballard, who was previously embodied as Benjamin Franklin. So keeping track of where the masters are now is hugely important. And it's a relevant topic, and it's a good place to start a conversation in many respects. But we do care about politics, I want to make that clear, because there are so many problems in the world today, and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that we are a society doing all the wrong things and yet priding itself on seeking some sort of reprieve from the inclusion of God. We don't believe that the absence of God strengthens American democracy, in other words. And interestingly, and if you're a little bit skeptical or you want more information about that, it is interesting that New Age theorists have that sort of interest in sort of deist almost, in a way. And I don't mean that to denigrate God, because I think certain kinds of deism can be sort of a diminishing of the potency of God, or the perception of God. But it's interesting to look up that we have been around, and truly, I mean, theosophy and anthroposophy, and early forms of Gnostic thought, Rosicrucian thought, can be found in the bases for the United States government. Unfortunately, we have veered very far off course from that. So that's part of what I wanted to discuss, and also in the second part of the quote unquote trying to keep better order. I've been led to cut a couple of different recordings, and one of the things that the masters felt was that there should be time allotted to there should be a topical delineation. In other words, I should be making recordings based upon specific topics, and also I'm probably invoking specific masters and working with different masters, receiving dictation from the masters. If you've never worked with Elizabeth Clare Prophet before, periodically you can hear her receiving information. And when she receives dictation, one thing to remember, and established church people will already be aware of this because we all discuss it. It's one of the things that sets us off from the spiritual churches. We don't believe that people channel per se, at least not in the traditional sense. We don't believe in channeling, I'll tell you, and I know that this is the case, we don't believe in channeling dead entities. We don't think, Mother has taught specifically that that's not lawful. So in the early spiritual churches at the turn of the century, people attempting to contact their, I'm not sure how that worked, departed husbands and wives and sort of thing. Whether or not that's possible, I don't really have access to that information. I suspect that it's not really how information is transferred to people. But Mother said specifically that that's not lawful. And I know that in one of our, in other words, the masters are there to provide us with information, not Uncle Henry or departed Aunt Ellen. It's Jesus and Cthulhu and Beloved Mary and Nada and people who have been embodied on the planet and have won their ascension. So they're no longer physically present in the sense that we typically think of people being embodied, but they have reached their ascension. Their souls attain permanent union with their spirit, and they're now, in the office of the world teacher, or Chohans on the various chakras and that sort of thing. Those are the messengers, and those are the masters that love us and who want the world to work in the right way, and want to help bring the planet into ascension. So when Mother gives a quote-unquote dictation, she's receiving the information, but she's not disembodied herself. She is aware. She doesn't go into a trance state. She is fully present. And other masters that I know, and I've mentioned him before, Lipo and Sedona, I endorse his work because I've seen it. And he receives the amount of information that he received at this one particular juncture. It was strikingly almost identical to the information that I was receiving. New information, new messages, and I had received them, 3 days beforehand, and then I got on the internet and I sat down and listened to Lipo, and he was relaying all the same information that I had been receiving, and some of it was based upon things that we had read, but we had read a lot of the same things, and then but there was new information from masters. One in particular, trying to think. I'm not sure, but his Sanat Kumara, his discussion of Sanat Kumara was almost identical to my knowledge base. Sanat Kumara was the hierarch of Venus, known as the Ancient of Days, so he has something. It was interesting to read that to see that he was receiving the same information that I had been receiving. So it's no joke. It's the masters do deliver information. One of Lipo's points was that for a while now it's been about certain masters, and then people generally feel who in the New Age, the quote unquote New Age movement, and truly I'd rather refer to it as the Summit Lighthouse, because I think that causes less confusion. Because when I refer to it as the Summit Lighthouse, that my intention is to maintain a codified approach, so that we can understand that we're all working with the same source of information, as opposed to person X, Y, and Z who's off in the periphery taking a shot at doing something. And it's fine if their heart is in the right place and if they're able to contribute, but it should be, my belief is that it should be seen and understood that Mother brought all of this in, and that the church unfolded, this enormous spiritual resource unfolded because we all participate in the same organization, and I believe that it's okay to seek codification. But in any event, so my impression is that I am undergoing a revelation with respect to the Lotus, what's being described to me as the Lotus dispensation, and it's a lot of information. It's a lot of amended information. A lot of very positive changes to how I'm able to manage energy based upon focusing on what Lotus is inspiring me to reveal, and the energy in which I'm being called to work, and lots of different information coming from her, with, for instance, being drawn to incorporate more Islamic teachings, and being drawn to start using just different chakral work involving Serapis Bey and the implementation of discipline and that sort of thing. And I can get into that as more is being revealed. So Lotus is important right now, and I'm also down the line. I would like to be able to talk to you more about Beloved Mary, who has messages, and who has messages about Jesus and Christ consciousness, and anyone who does work with me or wants to know more about what it is that I'm doing will know that Christology is an enormous interest of mine, and that I'm always interested in comparing mainline Christianity to the kind of Christianity, or the looking towards Christ, the utilization of Christ consciousness, the higher Christ self, as an alchemical tool, and the manner in which that differs from mainline Christianity, supplements mainline Christianity, enhances it, emanates from it. But I don't think that a lot of the traditional teachings are accurate. But it's interesting to understand how the different representations of Beloved Mary and Christ can enhance your love and ability to interact with them from a spiritual perspective. So I hope that I hope to continue to receive information about that as well. So the masters in particular, Lotus, Beloved Mary, Germain has been working with me a lot and has been guiding me, and I can tell a lot of times, I'm not sure, I mean, I've never had this conversation with people. I know a lot of you work with masters, whether or not you admit it or whether or not you call it that, but you're guided, and you understand that there are forces at work, that energetic forces and so forth, that are beyond what the sort of science that we would learn from a textbook, for instance. And I receive information periodically, I feel, through other people who are embodied now, and through my own sort of inner resources as well. But periodically I will receive information and energy that is clearly from one of the masters, and I can feel the signature, and I'm becoming, as I deepen my studies and work on my own personal path, I'm able to fairly readily, if I can't pull it off with as much frequency as I would like, and certainly I would like the presence of the masters as much as possible, I can at least have a better understanding as to when they're relaying information. And there's sort of kind of a signature that comes along with information that you get from Nada or from Germain. If Germain feels a certain way about something, and with me, Germain, it's really sort of when he's concerned about in the last 20 days, been concerned about the architecture of information as I'm handling it. And I've got this sort of Vulcan ability or proclivity to try to identify and organize information to very fine detail, and sometimes I'll worry about, and perhaps this is information that's useful to some of you, I'll worry about whether or not I am handling information in the appropriate way, in a way that is recognizable to the masters, in a way that is going to maintain the longevity of that information. So one of the messages I've received recently from Germain is that we should also, vote in our own experience as human beings and as human consciousness, as individuals, when we are attempting to organize that cosmic library, because they do take the masters as they're looking down, using the all-seeing eye cyclopedia to understand where it is that we're at in our development, in our individual development, on the path towards ascension, but also in the ascension of the planet and how we're all contributing to that. When they look down, it's possible that we can help them organize that information by saying, well, I want to organize my specific astral work should be emanating from this retreat, and I want to restore this particular information on this particular chakra. And really, it's up to the individual to a large extent to make those decisions. Germain sort of intervened in a way. It was almost like an intervention through the karmic board. Um, the karmic board, if you've been following from before, will intervene if karma is too difficult for an individual. So our destinies have a certain direction, a vector, if you will, and yet periodically we will reach a point at which it's virtually impossible for us to go on. At that point, there will be a intervention, sort of in the goings on, and the karmic board will say, "Okay, enough. Like, we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z instead, because this isn't working out for you. Not that it's your fault, that you're not able to pull it off, or that the conditions on the planet are such that this needs to change, because we need energy going in the right direction." And at a certain point, when things collapse for people, the karmic board comes in and says, "No more. Like, we're changing this now." That's kind of part of Lotus as well. It seems to me. It seems that the Lotus dispensation has to do with. Here's the difference with Lotus, and El Morya is putting this on my to the fore right now. We are taught that, and it's an accurate teaching, that the heart really ought to be stimulated, and that truly all we need is the heart, because the heart is the realm of Paul the Venetian. If we loved perfectly, we would have the discernment. And I've got people logging on and off right now, so you'll have to. I owe people phone calls, so I'm doing this while I promise to return some information. But if we loved perfectly, the heart is connected to the brain, and if we had the right heart, if we flowed that energy the right way, we talk about love as sort of this abstract ideal, and it annoys me to hear it as well. All you need is love, and all of this. It's annoying because, well, that's a nice theory, but I'm never, who ever is able to get anything done with that idea, because it's too abstract. But if you implement it, if you realize that it's an actual energy, that loving someone is an actual energy, it's a conscious act, and you can harness that energy, then it inspires your thinking in a certain way. It minimizes downtime. It minimizes, spiritual loss. You don't have to do as much recovery. Your health stays better, or you stay in a better physical state if you're able to utilize the energy of the third ray, the heart chakra. But the trick is, if we have all these impediments in life, if we've lost Atlantis, and we have that as karma, and that's not necessarily all of our faults. Not all karma, and this is the other big part of, not Lotus dispensation necessarily, although it does tie into what Lotus is doing right now. Another message that preceded the Lotus dispensation, as it started to be revealed to me, had to do with how we discuss sin and karma. And Mother wants people to understand that, karma is not based upon something bad that you've done. Bad karma can be choices that you make that don't have a moral weight to them. It can be, wasting your time. It's not immoral. It's not a violation of God's law to waste your time, but it's bad energetic practice that can bring in disease, give you headaches. And wasting time is just an example. But I mean, if you're not flowing energy the right way, and if you're not practicing yoga the right way, then you're going to be suffering the consequences and incurring bad karma. So that's another thing to think about as well. And that will be disclosed. Revelations from Mother Mary about the nature of Christ consciousness, additional work, and light. I would imagine more information from Germain, and certainly Kuthumi is still looming large over everything as far as I'm concerned. That's the information, and that for that part of it. And I'm going to see if there may be a couple of phone calls here that I can. It's a couple incoming calls that I can maybe address. Yeah, I know that there's some sort of a retreat issue going on over Half Dome in Wyoming, which I believe is El Capitan. I could be wrong about that, but it's and I can tell you who the master is. There is a new. I'm working with a new retreat that's being operated by the. Let me move this. They're giving me a really hard time. Heroes, and I think it's Amora. Let's see. And they are Elohim. Each chakra has a Chohan. Each Chohan has property, essentially, the equivalent of geographical property, at those locations. Some of the locations are in the Himalayas, some of the locations are in the United States. There's an etheric retreat over New York City called the Temple of the Sun, and that's Paul the Venetian's outpost, third heart chakra, third ray chakra, pink flame. The Elohim also rule and have their own retreats, and you visit them at night. And that's why we want to keep a clear path towards proper sleep and invoke Saint Michael, or pray directly to the respective master at night, so you are received at those locations. In TSL, the Summit Lighthouse will give you descriptions of the interior of those retreats, and will describe what the purpose is. And we'll be working according to the realms and different kinds of responsibility associated with each of those masters. And there was some sort of problem today with one of the retreats for some reason. That's the information that I was getting. Okay, or someone had a difficult time accessing, I guess, one of the retreats. Let's see. I know that there's a question about receiving information from Mother about companion animals, and you can receive that information if you. I know that it's free because I've heard it for free. The information that I heard is not on YouTube. It's truly, I believe that it's in one. I think that it's in Family Designs for the Golden Age, where she'll talk about companion animals, and it's a great series. Some of it is set up as interviews, but there are also, I noticed that there are also clips. The other thing that they've done is, if you get on the Open Door broadcast, which you can get to from the TSL site, if you get on that broadcast, then you will hear contemporary discussions of the dispensation, Ascended Master Theology, Violet Flame work, which I think Violet Flame is quite a complex idea, and I don't think that necessarily it's given. It's Mother worked for a long time with her congregation to teach them how to pray in a dynamic fashion, how to decree, and how to issue fiats as well. And it's unlike anything that I had ever encountered in traditional churches. And Violet Flame activity is derived from decreeing, and so people have some lack of understanding about that. It's not the same thing as the Violet Ray, which is the 7th chakra, seat of the soul, ruled by Saint Germain, although he has given us the gift of the Violet Flame. That is the gift of Saint Germain. I have a very busy cat right here. Jackie, go get that. And the good places to start your inquiry if you have additional questions. And the people, I'm hoping that people in the church are following along and helping me out through the airwaves as I try to relay a lot of this information. So please don't hesitate to be in touch with me if you feel that you need additional information or have questions or would like to make a donation. My goal, if people don't quite realize, I don't want to be doing this full time. I want to have my own center. I believe that it will be a Summit Lighthouse Center. I am 100% adhering to Church Universal and Triumphant and the Summit Lighthouse, the Mark and Elizabeth Clare Prophet dispensation. And yet, you know, if Order of St. Joseph needs to be its own entity to whatever extent the church requires that, then that would be fine with me as well. But it would be great to have a Summit Lighthouse Center in Maine, you know, and an Order of St. Joseph in Maine. As far as I'm concerned, we can have both. I don't see why not. So remain prayerful and alert and creative, and try to be as in touch with the folks, the spiritual folks, the light bearers, as you need to be during these next several months, because we're undergoing an enormous transformation where a lot of the energy and impetus that we've been working on planetarily is coming to fruition, and it's going to be important that we plan as much as we can, and then we organize our energy in a fashion that is that's consonant with the will of the masters, and also protective of our own need to help each other bear karma, resolve negative karma, transmute bad energy, and so forth. And we should move forward with the idea that we have something better waiting for us when this kind of rocky phase that is our present lot, essentially, is over, and we're striving for a better world, and a world that is more akin to the world we had before we lost it. So let's just all keep focused on that. And we'll be continuing to post and absolutely seek your input as well, and want to have more information. Want to seek to receive additional information to the masters, and also seek the guidance to be able to convey it to you in a sense that is actionable and meaningful and inspiring to you personally, wherever it is that you are on the path. And as much help as you can give me spiritually is obviously appreciated. So that's it for the time being. Namaste, and bless everybody out there. Thanks. Bye.